Well, hello and welcome to another video on how to do a Volvo repair. Today we're not doing too much of a repair, we're doing more of a preventative maintenance task. We're doing an oil change on this 2003 Volvo S60. This pretty much applies to all P2 series Volvos built from 2002 until about 2010. So if you drive an S80, V70, S60, SC or XC70, it should all be pretty similar. It really won't apply to the newer cars, unfortunately. The oil filter location has changed on the newer cars. They put it on the top of the engine instead of on the old location, which was located up in the front. But it should be pretty easy. It's really no different than changing your oil on a Toyota or a Ford. So go ahead and sit back and enjoy this video, and feel free to leave comments if you have any questions. Okay, so first thing, go ahead and open the hood on your Volvo. Like many other P2 series cars, my hood struts are shot, so I have to hold it open using a broomstick. You can buy new struts pretty cheaply online, but it's just something that I really don't care about, and I don't open the hood all that often. So once it's open, what I like to do is I like to go ahead and just take the oil filler cap off, and I like to also check the engine oil level before I get started. Okay, so now we've moved back into the workshop temporarily, and I'm going to go over some of the tools that you're going to need to complete your oil change on a P2 Volvo. First things first, you're going to need paper towels or rags so you can wipe excess oil off. You're also going to need a set of nitrile gloves or latex gloves, or really any kind of chemical resistant gloves so you don't get any oil on your hands as you're changing the oil. Next things next, we need a good quality oil filter. In this case I have a good quality European oil filter that is the factory style oil filter, I guess you could call it. What I like to do is I like to tape the crush washer to the top of the container. And you'll see why this is important in a little bit. But oil filter is important. Next things next, you need a 17mm box end wrench. This is to take the drain plug off. You will need one special tool, unfortunately, to complete this job, and it is the Volvo style oil filter housing wrench. You can get this at any dealership. They'll sell this to you at the parts counter. You can also get it from a variety of places online. You'll also need a ratchet that attaches to that. And finally, you will need a small ratchet set, metric, just so you can take the gravel guard off the bottom of the vehicle. So moving on to the shop floor this time, you're also going to need a few other tools to complete this oil change. You'll need this item on the top here, which is a oil drain pan. You'll also need a good quality jack, and you'll at least need one jack stand, and you'll see why in just a second. Okay, so moving to the back of the garage, I like to have at least one wheel chalked on my Volvo. This is important alongside having your parking brake on engaged fully, just because the car has a tendency to move back when you lift the front end. Moving to the middle of the car, I have my jack stand, and I just like to engage my jack stand to the normal Volvo jacking point, which you can see right there. There's another one on the rear side, and that one lifts up the rear end. Now this car's already lifted up. Once I do have it up in the air, I put a jack stand right there where the two parts of the frame are bolted together. There's a pretty strong area where you can put a jack stand. And if I move to the front of the vehicle, you can see that there's quite a bit of clearance underneath there right now, just with that one jack stand. And with this clearance, I can go ahead and do the entire oil change and oil filter change without having any issues. Okay, so we're now underneath the vehicle. I've got 6 bolts removed from this gravel guard, which and the bolts are all the way around the edges. You can see it's pretty loose. There is one more bolt, and quick tip here, I like to keep the last bolt in the middle until the end, just because it's a lot easier to remove this gravel guard when you keep that until the very end. If you try to remove that one in the beginning and keep some of the ones on in the side, the gravel guard will come down on you and it'll make the removal process a lot harder. So I'm going to go ahead and remove that one last bolt, and I'll show you what it looks like underneath the vehicle. Here's the oil drain plug. Here's my oil catch pan right here. We're going to go ahead and remove the oil drain plug. I have pre-loosened this. It's pretty tough the very first time you're going to get it. You just want to break it loose, and then once it's broken loose, you just want to use your hands to do it. You don't want to mar the bolt anymore with your box end wrench. And just make sure you have this close by. Remember to set this back a little bit. It's going to squirt out a lot further than you expect when it's really hot like this, and it's already starting to leak out a little bit. So just keep an eye on it, and we'll go ahead and remove this plug. And just like that, you can drain your oil. Now remember, as this is draining, this is going to take some time. These Volvos have a lot of oil in them, usually about 6 quarts or more. So, leave the drain bolt open for 10-15 minutes and just let all the oil come out. In the meantime, what I like to do is I like to get a good flashlight like this one right here, and I like to just do a quick inspection of everything underneath the car. I like to take a look at the CV joints. I also like to take a look at the turbocharger, if you do have a turbocharger in your Volvo, and just to check for leaks and just to see if everything's okay. So once you've gotten most of the oil out of there, retrieve your drain plug and clean it off a little bit. Once I've cleaned the drain plug off, I like to extract the old crush washer. Just throw that away. I like to clean the area where the oil comes out of. I like to get my drain plug, my new crush washer, place it on there, and then you're going to hand thread this. Don't use any power tools when you're doing this. Hand thread it back into your very soft aluminum oil pan. Wipe any excess oil that's in the area, because you can't really tell if there's an oil leak or not if you have oil everywhere. Move your drain pan out of the way, and I just like to make it nice and tight, and I did it the wrong way. You're going to make it go to the right, and just make it nice and tight. And now for the messiest part of the oil change, we're going to go ahead and remove this oil filter. So you're going to have to use your special tool here. Place it on top of the oil filter and then rotate it counterclockwise. Now this one shouldn't be too hard to remove, but it is very messy. So you want to remove it till it's loose. Sometimes it's tough to get that cap back off, or the tool back off. You can see it's already starting to leak off. And you want to do this very quickly because there is a lot of oil in this filter. Just want to dump it all out. And you want to let that drain for a few minutes. Okay, so now you're looking at the mess underneath my car right now. First thing I like to do is to get the old oil filter, wrap it in some paper towels, and I like to just put it in a new oil filter box, and I'll take this whole thing out for recycling. I like to get another piece of paper towel here and just spend some time cleaning. Spend some time cleaning this oil filter. Make sure you get all the sludge out from the inside. Now once you've done that and you've cleaned out the inside and the outside of the housing, I like to take a plastic pick and I remove the old O-ring on here. And if you don't change this, the oil may leak out of the filter housing. All the oil filters come with a new one of these. It's one of the requirements. And we will fit a new O-ring around here, which is pretty easy. And there are two channels. There's kind of a medium-sized channel, which is not where you put the O-ring here, and then there's another kind of a larger sized channel down here, which is where the O-ring goes onto. So what I like to do is I like to get some of this new oil and dip my finger in it and just moisten the O-ring using the oil, and that keeps it from leaking. Some people have some different opinions on how to do this, but I like to fit the oil filter onto the housing first. Either way is fine, and just push it in and you'll hear a nice snap like that, and you can put this back onto the oil filter receptacle on the bottom side of the car. So once the oil filter cap has been prepped and the new filter has been inserted, I just go in here with a clean paper towel. Some people advise against using a paper towel because of the lint that might end up in there, but I don't really care about that. And I just like to give it a nice cleaning. Remove any of the sludge that might have formed inside. Once you've done that, go ahead and reattach this plastic oil filter housing, and you'll feel some resistance as you put it on. But eventually you're not going to be able to tighten it anymore by hand, and at this point you're going to reattach your special tool and tighten it. And you'll feel it stop, and once it stops, I like to just snug it up a little bit, and then sometimes you have to back the wrench off to remove it. Now that we have everything tightened up on the bottom of the car, I'm going to go ahead and take my oil, open up the top, and I'm going to put 6 quarts of oil into this Volvo. Now the manual does say that this car takes 6.1 quarts, but I've noticed that 0.1 quarts doesn't make much of a difference, and on the dipstick it looks just fine. So I'm going to go ahead and insert 6 quarts of this synthetic pennzoil 5W30 oil in here, and just be patient and be slow about this process. Otherwise it will leak out the sides if you try to put it in too fast. And now that we have oil filled into the car, I like to go ahead and close the top, and then I will run the engine for a few minutes, and I'll go underneath the car to check and see if there are any leaks coming out of the oil filter housing or from the oil drain plug bolt. Okay, so the oil's been changed and the engine's now running, and it sounds just fine. So if you have any questions or comments, feel free to leave it in the comment section below, and let me know if you have any more suggestions.